Jalen Rieger getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees. And a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out. There's the whistle. That means it's time for Belly Up Fantasy
That's
Live.
right. So wake
Good
up.
morning. Yep, it's time. It's time to wake up. I don't have any coffee stout this morning. I'm drinking a toasted box. So I'm glad the whistle's there to get me going here.
Yeah, we definitely need to get started, and it's a great Sunday, and there's a lot to look forward to today.
Definitely. Welcome in, everybody. I am Chase Thornton coming to you from the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar. With me, as always, Kevin Wilson there down in Texas. How's it looking down there, dude?
It's looking pretty good right now. I think I was just looking at the weather, and it might be a little dicey as far as some winter stuff rolling in, but not nearly as much as the other places in the countries. You probably and I was talking to my mom a couple of days ago, and she said that she's never seen that much snow. So y'all can have the snow. Well, we're good.
It's been cold up here the last couple of days. We had a bunch of snow last week, and I don't know if anybody's seen it yet. I know there was a video going around on the interweb machine. A truck driver who was stuck down southern Wisconsin towards the Illinois border between Beloit and Janesville on the interstate. And it got bad, and there was a gigantic pileup. And I mean, this truck driver, he's pulled over because everything in front of him is destroyed and spread all over, and he's just taking video with his phone, watching people keep sliding in and piling up behind him, and it's semis and it's vans and passenger cars and everything else. And at one point in the video, this dude gets out, and the truck driver's yelling at him, "No, don't get out, stay in." And this dude in a blue coat gets out of his car, walks around the back of another car to go do whatever, and he literally no more than clears this car, and a car comes right behind it, bam, and wangs right into it. And I was like, dude, 8 seconds earlier and you were done.
Yeah. So
the truck driver, he's seen
y'all can have all of that, and we'll take our little, freezing drizzle or whatever it might happen. Yeah. The ice is a whole different scenario. We get those, down here, and it's, turns Texas into just
a wasteland.
A wasteland.
Hey, at least we can handle our power grid up here can handle it. We know how to deal with the cold, so we're not worried.
Right.
About
Plus, the drivers up there, know how to do that, and it gets icy down here, and it's just it's like playing a video game, but it's not a good one. Well,
that's okay. We know how to deal with it here, but I'm more interested in what it's going to look like here in Philadelphia and in Kansas City today. Obviously, it's Championship Sunday, everybody. Conference championships here, 2 good games. I will be honest, and I feel kind of sheepish saying this, considering what we do here. I haven't had an opportunity to watch a whole lot of the playoffs live yet. I've had a lot of family things going on. Last Sunday, we had a birthday party for my 5-year-old, and I took my older son to a play an hour away. And so I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of it live. Now, I've got that NFL Plus ticket where I can watch the games on delay, all of them, which is cool, which is great during the regular season. And this isn't meant to be, some kind of paid advertisement or endorsement, but or unpaid, I should say.
That's right.
If you don't have that, but you like to watch a lot of like game film, like football and that kind of thing, and you don't have access to a lot of other stuff, getting that is awesome. I mean, you can watch the games it's almost like watching them on DVR where you can fast forward and skip.
You can fast forward to the parts where
I don't want to have to listen to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman talk. Yeah. So I can flick. But that's also, so during the regular season, I get to watch a lot of football, a lot of film, film type stuff. And so I've had to kind of catch some of the playoff games that way here, but today, nothing going on. I've already kind of announced to everybody, hey.
All right, you cleared the deck.
I'm watching football. So I'll be able to follow my DFS lineups here live and actually, and get the adrenaline rush that I've been missing here for the last couple of weeks.
I don't think we could have asked for 2 better football games today, could we?
No, I think, it's
for
kind
better
of making the rounds.
Games anyway.
the attitude has kind of been making the rounds that, yeah, they got it right. The right 4 teams made it. Now, I don't think anybody would have argued had Buffalo made it in as opposed to either of the other 2 teams. But, I mean, you look at, I mean, you got the 49ers who haven't lost since, 19,
I don't know, since dinosaurs roamed the earth or so. And
the Bengals are about the same way right now. The
that's
Bengals
right.
have won
They've
something
won
like 13.
It's not San Francisco territory, but it's pretty up there. And they've won the games that have mattered and gotten themselves in this position. And so I'm jazzed up for at least, the AFC Championship game because, as everybody knows by now, Bengals guy right here. As far as the Eagles and the 49ers, I don't have a skin in that game whatsoever. And so I'm just looking for a great football game. Right. And so I think we're due for that. We are definitely due for great football today. And we'll talk about it and give our predictions. We could be 100% right just as easily as we could be 100% wrong.
Oh, no. I mean, they're stacked up great. There are great storylines on both sides. You've got the rematch, obviously, in the AFC. Literally just pound for pound, exactly what it was last year. You've got the Bengals coming into Kansas City and Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, and should be a great matchup. I mean, so far, in the last 3 matchups, all last calendar year even, but the last 3 matchups, Joe Burrow has had Patrick Mahomes' number like no one else.
And that's the biggest question of that game is what exactly, how well can Patrick Mahomes play? I know they're saying that he's, looks like he's 100%, whatever, which I find that difficult to believe. And so, Kansas or the Bengals, their game plan has to be to get Mahomes, even though he's quite capable of it, but to get him to move around,
trying to make him move,
and make him move, check that ankle out, to see how much it stands up, and that has to be their. I'm sure it is their focus. Get him moving around back there just to see. And if he proves he can do it, then maybe you adjust on the fly a little bit. But that has to be the game plan for them coming into this game.
No, I think you're right. I think it has to be. I mean, you can say that he's looks 100% or, feels great or whatever. It's one thing to walk gingerly out of a press conference and not show any, pain. It's another thing to play in an NFL football game at the most important position in all of professional sports.
It's another thing to do that even during practice.
Right.
Because they're not trying to, go 100% at you in practice. And so it'll be very interesting to see what exactly his status is. And you're not going to know that until the game actually is going on. Yeah.
And I mean, from the Chiefs standpoint, the nice thing about it for the Chiefs is that, they're facing the Bengals. The Bengals, the Chiefs have a pretty good, their offensive line has performed very well this year. The Bengals have not necessarily been a high sack total, high pressure team.
Nope. I'm looking at the numbers here, and you are correct because they have by far the fewest sacks of any of these 4 teams.
Oh yeah.
So putting pressure on him is not their forte, but they're going to need to dial that up, I think, to start this game.
They're pretty middle of the road in terms of pressure percentages and how often they can at least hurry the quarterback, but they do not get home very often. So don't necessarily expect to see a ton of hits on him. But you're right. They have to.
They don't have to hit him, but they have to move him.
No, Lou Anarumo is going to have to get something going there to put some pressure on Patrick Mahomes, make him be mobile, try to get some hits on him, try to see if they can make him at least think about that leg more than he has appeared to this week. It's a high ankle sprain. Now, he's got a history of playing through this kind of thing before and not letting him necessarily affect him. And we know that Patrick Mahomes is one of the most talented guys in the entire league. I mean, he's right. This is an MVP caliber player and a guy who's been there and done it. He's not going to be phased by the moment.
He's been in the championship in the AFC.
Exactly. So, he's trying to get back to the Super Bowl.
His resume is complete. Only thing he hasn't done is won that second one. So he
Right.
doesn't want to turn into like your guy, Aaron Rodgers, and win one Super Bowl.
Hey,
And but
he's been
he's
back.
here.
Mahomes
He's
has been
here.
back. Mahomes
Right.
has been back, and I don't
That-
think anybody is questioning his
No. If you're
chops.
questioning
He's not going to be too
anything
big for
about
Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, then you need to put down the mic and walk away.
Yeah, right.
And-
Figure something else out with your life.
Yeah, figure something else out to do in your life because you're not bringing it.
But that definitely will be that'll be the focus of the entire game. Now these two teams, when they played each other earlier this season, Mahomes, and I wrote this in my preview article that's up right now over at bellyupfantasysports.com.
Yeah, wait till we're off the air and then go check that
and
out.
then check it
quality
right out.
stuff. So
Plus, you got time. The game doesn't start till later tonight. But
right.
when they played each other earlier this year, it's not that Mahomes, and even in the previous several games here, he threw a couple of picks last year in the championship game, but in their two regular season games, he hasn't played terribly. It just hasn't been MVP Patrick Mahomes that we've seen in those games. This year in the championship game, especially, they don't have Tyreek Hill to fall back on, but he hasn't shown that he's needed that all year.
No.
Without Tyreek Hill, losing Tyreek Hill, they were still the top passing team in football. I mean, what?
Yep.
What
Number
more
one
does the guy have to do to
overall
prove himself?
offense. Number one pass offense, as you
Yes.
mentioned. And so, Tyreek Hill, glad to, have a great career down there in Miami, but we don't miss you up here in Kansas City.
Right. And the way that they've done it, and this is the thing that's so cool about the Chiefs is and one thing, bringing up Aaron Rodgers, that kind of separates him from, like, say, the Packers, is that they don't have anybody right now down there in their receiving core. Now, Travis Kelce at tight end is all world, and he's besides the point. They don't necessarily have anybody who's a superstar caliber guy out down there at the moment. Juju Smith-Schuster has been a top 10 fantasy type player in the past, and he's a good receiver, but he wasn't necessarily the spark that that started the engine here. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is still Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I don't know. Everybody thought it'd be different just moving a few states.
We don't need to mention him the whole rest of the show.
No. Kadarius Toney, now he has shown flashes of brilliance.
That's the guy that's very intriguing to me coming up in this game because they've got him. They took a while to get him going on, but they have him going on right now. So I think that out of the wide receiver core, Toney is the guy. If you're looking to get somebody from Kansas City other than Kelce, Toney is a guy you need to look at.
I really like Kadarius Toney here today. I like him for them going forward if he can stay healthy. That's his biggest problem,
and he can keep his mind, focused.
Right. His biggest problem in New York seemed to be his health. I mean, essentially, and they eventually got tired of it and they traded him off. And awesome for the Chiefs for jumping on that because it was the kind of thing that what was it going to hurt Kansas City to try that out?
If there ever was one,
right? I mean, it wouldn't have hurt anybody necessarily to bring him in. But I think Kansas City's similar to New England in the idea that they have a strong enough coaching culture and a strong enough team culture right now.
Right.
You can afford to bring in a guy who might be seen as a distraction somewhere else. You wouldn't want
and all that comes from the head coach.
Exactly.
Andy Reid, you're going to sit there and joke around. Andy Reid's not going to have that.
No. And
that permeates their entire clubhouse.
And Toney, he's got talent. Nobody denies he's got talent. He's got a ton of it.
Talent, no question.
But, in terms of staying healthy, if he can stay healthy, and you can't necessarily blame a guy for that. A guy's body is going to do what it's going to do. But in terms of the head stuff, the head case stuff that he was getting, I think, a bit of a reputation for, I think.
Yeah, he definitely has a reputation.
Andy Reid and the Chiefs are well equipped to handle that.
Absolutely.
And it just doesn't seem like distractions distract this team. I mean, look at all the ridiculous Patrick Mahomes' entire family hanging out on the field and dancing on logos and everything else between Jackson and wife and everything else. Brittany is, I guess, her name or whatever. But, distractions don't seem to distract that team. I
No.
think they are a even keeled ship, and so bringing in somebody like Tony was worth the shot, because if you can add that caliber weapon to that caliber offense already, boom. But the way that they've done it is to spread that ball around, and you never necessarily know from week to week, other than Kelsey, who always gets his. You don't necessarily know whether it's going to be a McCole Hardman week, whether it's going to be a Juju Smith-Schuster week, whether it's going to be a Marquez Valdes-Scantling week, whether Justin Watson's going to take off for a 64-yard, score. Sky Moore is still there. They've got a plethora.
He's reportedly still there. I don't know if anyone's seen him.
He's around. He's around.
Yeah.
But the point is, whereas in the past few seasons, it had been the Kelsey and Hill show and almost nobody else.
Right.
This year, it's a very much a group effort between everybody who's ever played running back for them, including, the not quite departed, but basically should be, in my opinion, should be departed, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Pacheco.
You're talking about a guy who's
McKinnon,
missing in action. That guy hasn't been seen since October or November. I forget which it is.
Mahomes spreads the ball around to the point where, like, you never know from play to play or from week to week who's going to be the guy. And I think that it makes him very difficult to defend, because you're talking about an MVP who knows how to spread the ball to everyone. He's not just locked in on Davante Adams. He's not just locked in on
he's going to be locked in more on Tony today. Because the last game, he had 7 targets.
He led the receivers in targets last week. Yes,
that's right. And he had 5 catches. So that leads me to believe that he's left all the stuff behind. He left it, by the road or whatever, and he's got his act together. And Tony is a key guy in this game, I think.
He's played well for them in the handful of games that he's had with them. He didn't score. He never scored a touchdown in New York. And he comes here and he's rattling them off. He's got several already. And the thing I like about Tony, like I said in my write-up here, Tony is not just going to get, if he's leading the team in targets or leading the receiving core in targets, that's huge for one.
That is huge.
But the other part of the thing is, they're going to scheme gadget plays for him, and they're going to get him the ball. They're going to hand him the ball like they did to Tyreek Hill. They're going to do different things and run screens with him, and they're going to trick play and gadget play and designed handoff. They're going to get him the ball no matter what they have to do. And in my opinion, they can't do enough of that, because he has got the explosive talent to be that guy on that team. More so than anybody else really outside of Kelsey, who is playing a different position and is a different kind of explosive.
And all that talk this week about how he had a back issue in practice. And I think that we can go ahead and ignore all that sideshow, because full well that Kelsey will be on the field. Yeah.
No, that was a bunch of
meaning to be in the ambulance. He's going to be on the field.
That was a bunch of Charlie Brown teachers talking about his tune it out. Tune
that out. He's going to be on the field. So that's.
And the cool thing that I liked about Kadarius Toney, from a play in him here in the playoff standpoint, DFS, he only costed $3,700 right now on draft.
Well, then sign me up.
Now, other people are going to jump on that too. Other people should be jumping on that too, with his performance from last week, and with that kind of price, and just knowing that Mahomes is going to go and going to play. People are going to jump on that, but I think he's such a great play, because he's going to free up so much more money for you to be able to do whatever else you want to do with your lineup.
If you want to put Kelsey in there, which I'd put up an argument, maybe you want to use Dallas Goedert instead. But if you wanted to play Kelsey, then you could put Tony in there, and you could afford both of those guys.
We will get to Goddard in a little bit here when we talk about the NFC game. But I have been advocating, and I put it in both write-ups again, Kelsey normally is such a, and it's, DFS is different. Obviously, everybody loves to have Kelsey in their lineup. But you almost have to, because he's going to score points. But the thing I like about this week, it's so different than what we talked about all year.
17 targets.
right?
17, not 7.
You can't buy that for
17.
any money at any other position.
No,
Your
there's no
receiving
wide
core
receiver
might
that's
not
going to
have that
get
many.
17 targets
Right.
today.
Yeah,
None.
nobody who's left pretty much. But
Not AJ Brown or anyone else we'll talk about later, but yeah,
like
17 targets.
Like in redraft and in dynasty, Travis Kelce is such a cheat code because he is so much more valuable than anybody else at his position. But we're at a point now, we're down to the final 4 teams. And you could argue whether you want to argue about the capability of Hayden Hurst, but at least 3 of the 4 starting tight ends that are left are 3 of the 4 best in the business. Between Goddard,
Hayden Hurst
Kittle,
is a guy that I would advocate for too.
Yeah, I like him, but I really like Goddard. I like what Goddard does.
Goddard is a guy that I've had on my fantasy team all season. So, yay, Team Wilson.
So I think there's opportunity. There's opportunity, I think, to still get value at tight end without playing Kelce at tight end. But I think that if you want to spend the money for him and put him in your flex and have 2 tight ends, now normally I don't advocate that, but we're at a point where the tight ends who are left can have value.
Right.
And you want to be a little more contrarian than other people.
Yet, so yeah,
throwing 2 tight ends at people, knowing that. As I think
any of those guys could wind up with 2 TDs today.
Right. I love Goddard in the Eagle game. I love what he does in their pass game. So I like him as a
going
starting
up against
tight
that
end.
49er defense gives me a little pause with that. But
everybody gives me pause going up against the Niners defense.
That's right. So,
but they're still good. But the Niners also did not play Philadelphia every week either. That's my point.
Yeah, let's make that clear. So. When you're, you're scheming against Noah Fant, that's a whole different scheme than you're doing against Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, than going against Dallas Goedert and some of these other guys. But I do like Kelce in DFS lineups today. You're going to pay up for him. You're going to have to pay through the nose, but I like him in DFS lineups. I think you need to, just because he's going to get his. It's one of those things like you've seen that. You've seen the stat where in his career, Tom Brady is more likely to make the Super Bowl than to miss the playoffs in his career. And that's bizarre. He's more likely to make it to the Super Bowl than he is to miss the playoffs. And there's not a lot of guys I think that can say that, obviously. No. But it's kind of the same, almost the same kind of thing with Kelce. He's more likely to get you, tight end starter and even wide receiver starter type numbers than he is to bust.
Right.
He's
numbers.
Never
That's
a
right.
bust. He's one of the more consistent players that you can pick at any position. So I like him today. So from the Chiefs, I do like Tony. I do like Kelce. And it's not that I don't like Mahomes. I'm just as worried maybe about his ankles.
There's the question mark that's associated with him. And so I think he's going to be fine. Yeah, but like we said earlier, we won't know that until he moves to his left or his right, and we see how he moved.
So here's where I think you can kind of, like I said, zig where other people zag. Yeah, I think that the public is off of Mahomes. I think they're a little worried about his ankle. I think that's going to give some people some pause. I think the price tag at 7,600 is going to make some people pause and pull back a little bit. Right now, the Bengals are everybody's darling. Everybody is high on them. They're a road favorite, for crying out loud. Burrowhead and all of the, everybody's talking up Cincinnati.
You would think that they would put calm that down just a little bit. Right? You wouldn't want that hanging over your head going into that stadium, because we all know, I like to think that the Seahawks, have a home field advantage, and they do.
But the Chiefs are
the Chiefs. That's a whole different stratosphere right there.
And
they're going to let Joe Burrow know as soon as he steps out of the tunnel and onto the field and everything else.
Right.
We don't appreciate this.
I might hear the boos up here.
Right. Exactly right.
Away. Yeah.
So they're not going to Burrowhead. Really? We're going to run with that? So
it is catchy, though. I mean,
it is catchy. Maybe, and especially if he goes out and wins this game today, he might want to, get a hold of his local copyright office and get that copyrighted as soon as possible.
On that. They're selling T-shirts and banners
That's
and
right.
everything else, man.
T-shirts and
People be getting tattoos.
That's right. And so but first you got to win the game.
Right. But where I think that you might be able to, like I said, separate yourself a little bit is I don't think that as many people are going to be on Mahomes as they normally would be in DFS, because I think they're going to be scared away by the ankle and the price tag and the whole Bengal mania hype that's going on right now. So I like playing Mahomes this week as a quarterback. Like you said, I think he's going to be just fine. I don't honestly, unless Brock Purdy falls on his rookie face today, you can't necessarily go wrong with any of these passing offenses.
Of these four,
and
but
so the way you're going to want to separate yourself
I
is
would
to play
go
who's
with
not going to
so
play.
I could stack other places.
And we just talked about Tony. We just talked about Kelsey. You want to throw Patrick Mahomes in there and stack with the three of those? Boom.
You
perfect.
could do that. You could do that.
And my heart wants to say Bengals. I'm kind of in with everybody else. Plus, I love Joe Burrow. I've got Joe Burrow on several teams, and I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. But I picked initially when this whole thing set out. If you've been reading through the articles that I've released before every game, I am sticking with 49ers Chiefs making it to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And if you think that the Chiefs are going to win today, they are not going to do it without Patrick Mahomes. And so I like him today. I like stacking him with Tony. I like stacking him with Kelsey. I don't necessarily like stacking their defense on top of that because they have by far the weakest of the four defenses that are left.
By far. And so, yeah, I'm with you on that. And
where I'm not excited about them, and maybe you feel differently, is McKinnon and Pacheco at running back.
Yeah, because I was big on McKinnon going into the game last week. And then, what winds up happening? Squadouche.
Yeah, he
had
didn't
no catches, which mystifies me greatly. And so I don't think that's going to happen again.
And that was
I like Pacheco. However, I don't like him going up against that Cincinnati defense. I don't like that at all. That's the strength of their defense. And so, no, I know that our favorite Mater has put that out there, run Pacheco, run, and he's going to try and run, but I don't think that is going to be a winning. If he's running around and gaining yards, then Kansas City is in good shape.
Yeah, that bodes very well for them. But I
don't see that happening. They're going to need to win this game elsewhere.
Yeah. I'm just not excited about either one of them. Like you said, McKinnon not getting any catches last week.
And he's been big in the catch department. That's been his calling card. And for him to wind up with nothing.
Because he's not going to be the more effective runner between himself and Pacheco. He's just not.
Yeah. No. And that's been evident all season. As you say, we're at the point, you are what you are. And he's the pass catching back.
He has been such a great weapon.
He has been.
We just talked about him. Mahomes spreads it around to the entire
Kansas City. That's what really, when I sat down and looked at the game afterwards, and I realized, wait, he's got no catches.
Yeah.
And of course they wound up winning the game anyways. But if you had told me he would have no catches against Jacksonville, that's a little different situation. If he's got no catches today, I like their chances not at all.
Right.
Against the Bengals today.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who had almost twice as many receiving touchdowns as any other running back in the game. I mean, Christian McCaffrey had 5, Jerick McKinnon had 9 receiving touchdowns this year.
9. And
he's
have
not
no
going to run the
catches.
ball.
No, he's not. And
he only had 72 rushing attempts all season.
And there's a reason for that. And so, and Pacheco, he was a rookie, and I thought I liked him right from the start. And especially when CAH, disappeared and he's on the FBI's most missing list right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so Pacheco stepped right in, and then he was the running guy, and then McKinnon was the pass catching guy, and then their offense was really humming.
Yeah. No, I just and in the game they played week 13, both of them scored. Pacheco and McKinnon both had touchdowns. They didn't have terrible games, I'm not. It's not that I don't think that they can be fine. I just think they'll be fine.
Out of the options,
they
that's
just
right.
don't
Out of
excite
the
me.
options that we could discuss, if being fine, as you say,
Yeah.
I want somebody else that's going to be better than fine.
I mean, you could argue that, yeah, I mean, maybe everybody else is scared off of McKinnon too because of the no catches last week. I don't think he repeats that this week.
No, I don't either.
I think he does just fine.
Fine.
So I'm not
That's right.
excited about either one of them. I don't think there's anything wrong with playing either of them. If I'm going to pick between the two, I mean, I don't know. I've got Pacheco ranked third this week. I've got Pacheco's my running back 3 this week out of who's left. I mean, you're talking about essentially 5 or 6 starting running backs that you can make up between these 4 teams. Having Pacheco at 3 isn't necessarily like a giant endorsement. It's just there's only so many guys left.
Right. And
McKinnon,
the other guys
I have
are
at 5.
facing defenses that make you say, wait,
Right.
do I really want to do that?
And so, yeah, I mean, like I said, there's nothing wrong with playing either one of them. They're not overly expensive. I don't think they're going to, go off. I don't think we come out of today with either one of them having 3 touchdowns. I'll be prepared to eat those words if it happens. But, yeah, I just don't find them being very exciting plays today. Now, the other side of the field, though, the Bengals, they have a great matchup because Kansas City gives up points all over the place fantasy-wise.
Especially in the pass offense. That's what's really got to concern you if you're a Kansas City supporter. They are weakest against the pass offense.
Juicy
and then
matchup.
the Cincinnati Bengals trot out their 3 wide receiver, headed monster.
Can start anywhere that they wanted to. Yeah, exactly.
And and them and Hurst, as we mentioned earlier, and so that's where Cincinnati. There's no chance that Joe Mixon is going to have the game that he had last week. There's 0 chance of that. And
they just have to pop. Yeah, they just have to do what they do. They just have to do what they do. Let Burrow go back there and find the weapon that's open and hit the guy and hit the guy and hit the guy and hit the guy.
And let Mixon run it a few times, whatever. But he averaged 3.5 yards a carry during the regular season for a reason. And then, that was one of the biggest stunners of last weekend.
Right.
That Buffalo and their defense and the snow at home couldn't stop Joe Mixon. He averaged 5.3 yards per carry. And so if you're looking for a reason why Buffalo, and that's the biggest stunner of all the games last weekend, none of us could possibly have envisioned that the Cincinnati Bengals would go into Buffalo, first of all. Second of all, have it be snowing. And it's not like Cincinnati's from, LA or something like that. But that is exactly Buffalo. They had everything going their way. They had, Hamlin on the big screen and everything else. And for them to fall as flat on their face as any team I think I've seen in a long time, nobody could have predicted that.
Now, the one thing I will say for Joe Mixon's favor today, he didn't play in the Week 13 game. He was injured that week. He was out that week.
Right.
Samaje Perine did have 106 yards rushing in that game, and he also caught 6 balls for 49 yards. Now, he didn't score, but the winning score in that game was Chris Evans out of the backfield catching a pass to score in the fourth quarter.
Which is that's a stunning result because, as we mentioned, that's the Kansas City Chiefs' strong point.
But we know that the Chiefs, the Chiefs had part of Mixon's terrible efficiency numbers this season is because the Bengals offensive line has been the Bengals offensive line that we've come to know and
as we mentioned last week, they're down starters and everything else. And that's the other thing that was, you'd figure Buffalo would absolutely get in the backfield and be in Joe Burrow's
very well.
They only had 1 sack in that game.
Bengals played very well last week.
They can't play any better.
They're the number 28 offensive line according to PFF all year. But apparently they found a formula that worked earlier this season. Without their best guy in there, they still ran. They still had a 100-yard rusher. The winning score came from a running back. They still threw the ball out of the back to the guys in the backfield. That's been one thing that's kind of been fun about Joe Mixon this year. Is actually catching a few balls every once in a while. He had 75 targets and, he only caught a couple of touchdowns, but he had 75 targets on the year. That's nice. That's one of the better numbers.
You'll take that out of your running back. Sure.
And it's by far the most of his entire career. It's by far more than he's ever had before. And so, he didn't play. So we don't necessarily have a ton of recent history to go on in terms of like everybody else did with this previous matchup that they had this year. But I think I don't think they're going to just abandon him. I think they're going to try and use him. The nice thing about it is, like you said, they have all those guys available that they can just toss to left and right. Now, all of them, do you have a favorite play of the three receivers of Chase, Higgins, and Boyd in terms of plugging into a DFS? Say
because as we Ja'Marr Chase is Ja'Marr Chase, and he's going to require the most money out of the three. I think Higgins is the play I would look at between the three of them, and he's going to have a big game today. Even Boyd might have a big game, but out of the three of them, Higgins is the guy that I'm looking to make some noise today.
You're going to have to pay. Yeah. I mean, Ja'Marr Chase is the second most expensive player in all of daily this week. He and Patrick Mahomes are both at 76. They're only behind CMC at 8,000. So you're going to have to pay through the nose to get Ja'Marr Chase. Receiver.
Yeah. I'm not doing that.
Tyler Boyd is the complete opposite. He's literally half that. He's at 3,800 right now. Tyler Boyd also carries a lot more volatility with him.
He does,
because
and a lot more variability, if that's even a word.
Yeah.
That he might have 8 targets in one game and then 3 the next.
And even if he has the 8 targets, he may come away with 2 of them.
And we're talking about Boyd. He has 5 total targets in this postseason.
Yeah, no, he has not been the focus
at all. So Boyd is not a guy. You got to put somebody on him, obviously.
Right.
But Higgins, when you look at Higgins, he has 10 targets. Chase, of course, has 20.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's going to get his.
And that's the point.
But you can't pay all these top guys and have them on your team. You're going to have to scrimp somewhere. And I think Higgins is a guy that I would look at to scrimp just a little bit.
So Chase is your most exciting player in terms of the capability. He's the number one. He's my number one ranked wide receiver this week, and I think for good reason.
As he should.
He's the most expensive.
At a guy he has 2 touchdowns in the postseason, 1 in each game. He has 9 catches, TDs in the season, but he missed some time. You have to remember, and so as wide receivers go, he's got to be right up on that number 1 line. So.
But in terms of value, I mean, okay, if he's ranked number 1 and you pay for him as a number 1 and he returns number 1 numbers, great. You got sheer numbers. You got your money back on him. Essentially,
you got to hope that's what happens because there's nowhere else but go to down.
But
if you're paying number 1 numbers, and let's say you get number 3, you're behind the power curve with everybody else.
But you haven't separated yourself from everybody else.
You have not separated yourself. That's correct.
Now my only reservation with Higgins is that it just feels like a really stock standard chalky play to me where 5,400 for him compared to some of these other prices you're paying for people sounds really good. And I think he's going to put up really, pretty good numbers. That's great. But I think everybody else probably feels that way too. So again, you can play him, you can plug him in, and I think he's going to return great value. But if everybody else is playing him too, you've got to take into account what kind of game are you playing? Are you playing just a straight, matchup where you're just going for as many points as you can? Then a guy like Higgins, I like plugging in there. If you're going a GPP format where you're trying to stand out, go against the grain, like we said, everybody's on the Bengals. They're America's darlings this week. And everybody's going to look at that $5,400 price tag and think that looks like a pretty damn good price for a guy that can play like Higgins. So in a GPP format, I like maybe taking a different route. But if you're just if you're playing in a straight 50-50 type thing or whatever, where you're trying to get as many points as possible on that, and you don't necessarily care that everybody else is playing the guy too. then I like Higgins this week. Boyd is a big swing, and he's only 3,800. So if you find yourself, like you said, you can only pay for so many guys. If you've got,
Right.
if you've stacked your lineup with the CMCs and the Mahomeses and the, and the Chases, where you've got, pennies left at the end, of the guys on the lower end of the spectrum, I do like Boyd because we know Boyd can do it. Boyd is every bit as volatile as the guys from the Chiefs,
That's right.
the Valdez Scantlings that we talked about, and Nicole Hardman and all of that.
All that.
But I have more trust in Tyler Boyd. Maybe it's just a hunch. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but I feel like I can trust Tyler Boyd a little more. So if I'm shopping in that range, I like Tyler Boyd.
Okay.
I really like Tyler Boyd there.
Plus, he went to Clemson, so what's not to like?
So right, hey, went from orange to orange. So yeah, I mean he's comfortable. He's in his zone. All right.
Okay.
I think, first off, we're going to take a break here. We're going to listen to our sponsors over there at Manscaped, listen to the stuff that they've got going on brand new there. And then when we come back on the other side, we've got to get to this NFC matchup because we have to talk about.
Absolutely do.
We can't not talk about maybe the storyline of the week here. So let's listen to our stop from Manscaped here. We'll see you on the other side.
We have breaking news. Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off and free shipping. It's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to all your stubble and trouble with Manscaped Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. That's right, face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower to avoid all that hair in the sink. The titanium-coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. So make sure you get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com by using the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Once again, that's 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com.
All right, there we are. Yeah, if you guys haven't heard about it yet, Manscaped is they're not just trimming south of the border. They've moved north as well. They have beard products for you now. They have all kinds of lotions and creams and beard oils, but also a designated beard trimmers, so you're not you're not mixing, you're not crossing the streams, so to speak. Get over there, belly up, manscaped.com, use your promo code BELLYUPFANTASY, get your deal on that and get that. I got mine this week. I can't wait to actually be able to put it to use. It'll be a while. Be patient, everybody. But I will be able to use it at some point here, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
well, the nose trimmer is A+. I have one, so
you get to be our age. You need that more and more.
That's right.
Some of you guys out there won't understand it yet.
Obviously, I don't have the beard concerns or any of that, because I just don't, and
it's just not your deal.
So so get over there to Manscaped. As we said, you'll like what you find. Yeah,
some of you younger bucks out there won't necessarily understand what we're talking about with the nose hair trimmer. You will, and you will thank us, and you will thank Manscaped. So
that's right.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about this NFC matchup here right now.
Yeah,
this is the earlier game. This is the first game that's going to go off today. But 49ers, the Eagles. Eagles are 1.5 point favorites. Over under a 48.5. Now we've got a couple.
I'm going under. I'm telling you right this second.
You know what? I really am too. I have thought that all week. I looked at it. I thought these are some good offenses, but we've got a rookie quarterback.
I know that's quarter 4, and even everyone else I've seen the under is 46.5.
Yeah,
and I was going to go under that. No, so if it's 48.5, I'm under from now till the end of time.
To be honest with you, I like the under in the NFC. I like the over in the AFC. The AFC game's 50 points, but still, according to my friends, like I said, a quarter 4. But I agree with you. I like the under here in the NFC game. I just think that the defenses there, we're talking about the 49ers and the Eagles defense.
Number 1 against number 2.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of skilled offensive players that you could look at to put, obviously, but this defensive matchup, I think, is going to put a little crimp into just about everybody that we can mention.
And
because it's just the defense.
We've been the biggest. I mean, not the biggest, but we've been Brock Purdy fans, and we've been thrilled to see what he's done. He has not looked like a rookie necessarily.
No, and we could put that rookie talk aside now, because he has played enough games where he's not a rookie.
And by now he's played two playoff games as well.
He's played 2 playoff games.
Necessarily
of course, they were both at home.
Yeah.
And that last game, he faced a good defense. And I had said, if the Cowboys want to win that game, they're going to have to turn him into Mr. Irrelevant, which they did not do.
No,
they
he didn't throw his customary
they only scored 19
touchdowns.
points, but he didn't turn the ball over.
No,
and that's been his calling card from the beginning.
That's been the key. You're right. He did not have a great game, but he didn't have a bad game. And
no, he didn't.
That's the whole point.
But in the fourth quarter, I was sitting there and I was telling my wife, because the Cowboys had just cut it to 4. This is where games are won and lost. Mm-hmm. And the 49ers went down the field, kicked the field goal to make it a 7-point game. Dallas defense was strong the whole game, but they couldn't make the stop when they needed to do it. And of course, Cowboys, get off the stage. We don't need to talk about you anymore. And
it wasn't that Dallas didn't play exceptionally. I mean, their defense did what exactly the defense did what they needed to do,
except run the offense for them.
Christian McCaffrey scored, but outside of that, he didn't have a great Christian McCaffrey game.
I've got his numbers
35
right here.
yards
Let's
rushing.
He only has, 55 yards rushing in 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
You did not expect him to get 55 yards rushing in 2 playoff games.
No, not at all.
Now,
and I mean,
no.
They limited Deebo Samuel.
And
Deebo Samuel only had 11 yards rushing.
And they limited Ayuk.
Yep.
And
Kittle's the only one who had like a nice
that's
game.
What's going to happen today as well. That they've got all these weapons. It makes, like I've said many times, it makes me just get physically ill, and I want to, where's the throw up bucket? Where is it? Because and Justin, I knew Justin was going to come at some point and ride me about the Seahawks losing to them, which he did, and he had every right to do so.
Right.
And so it makes me physically ill. But I have said before these playoffs even began that the 49ers were the most complete team in these playoffs. They have not done anything to make me get off of that stance. So I think the 49ers are going to win this game today, even though it's in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia looked like, the 49er teams with Joe Montana in the 80s. But that was against none of us predicted that the Giants would just lay down like that.
No.
And so that wasn't even a real game for Philadelphia. They can think good about themselves, but they were not tested at all in any phase of that game. And that's not going to work against this 49ers team. They are going to test them in every phase.
They only had 154 yards passing last week. They only needed 154 yards passing to beat the Giants. Their backup running back beat the Giants. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell. I mean, not that Sanders didn't have a bad game. Sanders did not have a poor game.
I got the numbers. He had 90 yards and 5.3 yards per carry. So
Kenneth
you'll take
Gainwell
that.
Looked like an all-pro. Plus, Boston Scott had his customary touchdown against the Giants. So,
and if you played, we talked about DFS and everything. If you played Kenneth Gainwell, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Last week, raise your hand.
You should have won if you did, because
all right, I'm looking. I see no hands raised, and you had every reason not to play him. And you have every reason not to do that again this week, because it's not going to happen 2 weeks in a row.
I don't like him. I don't like anybody necessarily against San Francisco, but I think, we both talked about, we think that the under will hit here. I think if the over does hit in this game, I think that bodes very well for the Eagles.
I do too. Because the defense, if they're over, the defense of San Francisco did not deliver.
No, if we're scoring points in this game at that kind of a clip, it means that the Eagles are taking advantage and they are using their weapons better than San Francisco's using their weapons. And Purdy is not necessarily a rookie quarterback at this point, or he doesn't.
No, but he hasn't faced a Philadelphia type defense until now, yes. On the road, no less.
And I think he's going to be fine. It is for the Super Bowl.
I think he's going to be fine, and he has acted like, and I've seen it talked about where he has been a 4-year starter in college, and I think that has a lot to do with the way he's been able to carry himself since he became the starter, and all that, and then in the playoffs and everything else.
Yep.
When the Dallas defense was hitting and doing everything else, he stood back there and he did what he had to do. And so I don't think they're going to turn him into Mr. Irrelevant. But if that's the same kind of performance this week they had against Dallas, that doesn't do very well for the 49ers. I think he's going
to have to do more than he did last week.
He's going to have to do more than that. He's going to have to get the ball out to CMC and Debo and George Kittle. George Kittle was an afterthought against the Cowboys, and he's George Kittle. We talked about tight ends and how they're all great at this point. George Kittle is George Kittle. So if he doesn't do more than he did against Dallas, that's not good. But I think that he will.
I think he'll be fine. I do think he'll do more than he did last week. I am not backing off of. I agree with you. I think the 49ers win the game. So I'm not backing off of my initial prognostication here, saying that it's going to be 49ers.
As much as I'd rather get hit by lightning than predict the 49ers winning, I have to, I have to go with what I see.
And it is a great
from what I've seen, the 49ers have done nothing to dissuade me. They've won, 12 straight now? And so they are the hottest team.
It's a great storyline, though.
Right, and it's they thought they were going to be starting. Never had a rookie quarterback as a starter, never.
Well, I think they're about to.
They're about to. I think they will, and it's a great story. And he's been out front. He's out front as far as his faith is concerned, and and everything else. And his teammates are rallying around him. And the only thing that gets me upset is you got guys talking about, well, should he be the starter for San Francisco next year? Who gives a rat's rear about any of that?
Yeah, it's all about the next 2 weeks time frame right now.
Can we let the games be played? Right now, and just like to talk about where is Aaron Rodgers playing? Who gives a flying crap about any of that? Where's Tom Brady playing? Who cares? We have football to enjoy right now.
There's 4 quarterbacks I care about this week. Yeah, there's 4 quarterbacks I care about. It's the ones that are playing.
And who San Francisco plays in game 1 of next season, I couldn't give 2 flying craps about any of that. And anyone else that's really into football should not be focused on any of that. I would not write a single word about who cares. Who is he going to be the starter? Who cares? But I think he's going to be the starter in the Super Bowl in 3 weeks from today.
Well, if we want to talk about now who we want to play in this game, if we're looking at building our DFS lineups, I mean, we obviously there's a couple of great defenses here, so points are going to be at a premium. Points are, I don't expect either team to really shoot the lights out. Doesn't mean that there won't be an individual player who goes off. And we already talked about Dallas Goedert. I think we both kind of like him at tight end. If you want to save a little bit more money over Kelsey, or in my case, like I said, play him at tight end and Kelsey in the flex, like I am doing at DraftKings right now.
Okay.
But otherwise, from Philadelphia, I like the Philadelphia defense here. Even
I
though
do
I
too.
like, even
I
though
do
I
too.
like San Francisco to win the game, I think it's going to be a low scoring enough game that you won't necessarily be
You could play
penalized for
either
playing
defense from this
Philadelphia.
game, and I think you'll be fine.
And Philadelphia is going to be, it's Philadelphia's 2,800.
Okay.
They're not overly cheap in terms of the four teams, but you're
Well,
talking about
that's
the difference
because-
between 2,300 and 3,000.
Right.
Now, every $100 counts when you're talking about trying to put together, your lineup. But, I think you can play Philadelphia's defense and feel good about it because they are playing against the younger quarterback.
Right.
They
And they are at
just
home.
are. And they're at home,
They are at
and they've
home,
been that kind of
which-
defense all year.
As we mentioned about Cincinnati, they're not playing at home, so you don't want that defense. You don't want Kansas City's defense.
No, and Kansas City's got the worst defense left in it, and Kansas
That's
City's
right,
offense
the
has been the
worst
worst
defense.
matchup for defense.
That's right. So don't do
So
that.
I don't want that.
So out of the, like I said, you could play either one of these defenses.
Right.
But San Francisco, you're going to pay more.
You're going to
So
pay more for the 40.
You're going to pay more, and so go ahead and plug in Philadelphia's D into this matchup.
Now you won't. I mean, you can't go wrong playing AJ Brown at receiver. You can't go wrong playing Devontae Smith at receiver.
No.
I actually have Smith ranked a little higher than Brown this week, which is against my normal.
If I was going to play
It's against
one of
my
them,
normal
I'd play
instinct, but
Smith.
when I look
Out
at
of the
things-
two of them, I'd play Smith.
Yeah, he's
And he had 10 targets, 10.
he's marginally cheaper.
Marginally
But yes,
cheaper.
he
And that's
has
all you're
seen
looking
the
for
targets,
is
and I
cheaper.
think that people are going to. I think they're going to want to concentrate on taking AJ Brown away because he has been such a weapon for them this year. I
Right.
think
But
that
once
I think
again,
that your
49er
focus is on
defense
Brown.
That's right.
I think your
They're
focus has to
they're
be
gonna
on
shut-
Brown.
They're going to be trying to shut him down. So Smith is the way to go here.
I do like Smith. I do like Smith. I like him better than Brown in this game. Sanders is a fine play. I do like Sanders over Gainwell.
Me too, because Gainwell you didn't raise your hand earlier.
Last week,
You're
last
not going
week's
to
not
raise
gonna
your
happen.
hand now. So
Last
no.
week is not going to happen
No.
again for
And
Kenneth Gainwell.
so, if you look at these guys, even Boston Scott averaged 5.3 yards per carry.
Right.
Okay.
That's
And
not happening in San
Boston
Francisco.
Scott's name has not been mentioned this entire season until
Right.
today. Right. And so no one's going to average 5.3 yards per carry. No one.
No.
Maybe 3.5 yards per carry.
I think
And-
Sanders makes a decent play if you want to play him, if you want to spend for him. Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. I don't like Sanders because of the defense. I don't like him because 49ers have the number 2 rush defense in the entire NFL. And
No,
so
that's true.
And so that puts us back to the Kansas City guys that we talked about earlier.
Right. But the thing about Sanders, he was usable this year. He was a running back 2 for you this
Absolutely.
year. He was a running
Absolutely.
back 15 on the season.
Yep, he had 1,269 yards, 4.9 yards per carry, and 11 touchdowns.
Right.
You'll take that out of your starting running back
Oh,
every day.
big time. But the thing with Sanders now, okay, is he's frustrating. He's frustrating to use because just when you think he's going to go off is
And
when
then he disappears.
And so
Yeah,
you take him out of your
absolutely.
lineup, and the very next weekend he goes off for 2 scores and catches 6 balls somehow out of nowhere and runs for Miles Sanders played 7 games of the 17 that he played in. 7 of those games were against the bottom 10 fantasy defenses against the run. 7 of them were against the top 10 fantasy defenses against the run. And when you look at and you break it down, Miles Sanders actually performed better and scored more fantasy points this season against the top 10 defenses versus the run in fantasy than he did against the bottom 10. And those games against the bottom 10 included his gigantic explosion against the Giants when he had 144 yards rushing and a couple of scores and had every point from here to Philly.
Yeah.
So he is not necessarily, matchup dependent. And
Okay.
the Eagles have the number 1 offensive line
Yeah,
ranked in
you might have.
football
Yeah, with
by
that
PFF.
information, right? Because there are certain players that
Mhm.
play up or play down. Certain
Mhm.
teams, that play up or down to their competition, and that group, what you just said means that Miles Sanders does play up to his competition.
Yeah, he's
And
perfectly
so,
capable of having a game here. Now, he's
okay.
not overly expensive,
So,
and
okay.
I don't mind him.
Not
I don't
overly
mind him this
expensive,
week.
then yeah, you could talk me into him.
No, I don't mind him at all this week.
Okay.
The other side of the field, Christian McCaffrey is going to be Christian McCaffrey. He's the top weapon in fantasy. He can catch 6 to 10 balls every week from the running back position. He's also going to run the ball, and he can be effective there. He's going to get red zone looks. He's going to score. He's going to get his. I do like Elijah Mitchell this week, though. Elijah Mitchell has been quiet.
Mitchell, he had 51
very
yards
quiet.
rushing last week, but no catches.
No, he didn't catch anything, but he actually has had almost the same amount of usage as Christian McCaffrey has so far in the playoffs.
That's right. They've both been in the
Week 18
game just as often as not.
Week 18, when he came back, Elijah Mitchell scored you 2 touchdowns if you had him. Now he's been very quiet in the playoffs, but he actually has more red zone carries and red zone looks than McCaffrey in the playoffs does, and he's had terrible luck in the red zone. He's got something like -4 yards rushing on like 9 carries in the red zone in the playoffs. That will not
Seattle,
hold.
he had 9 rushes and 2 yards.
That's
almost an impossible feat to pull off.
49. Speaking of good offensive lines, 49ers have the number 7 ranked offensive line, but from PFF. They are good. They are good up front. And if he gets opportunities like that in the red zone, it's at some point something's got to give. The dam's going to break. He's too good. The offensive line is too good for him to have -4 yards to average over -2 yards, or to average a -0.5 yard per carry. He's too good for that in the red zone. So if you're trying to save some money at running back, you're trying to make yourself contrarian, you're trying to go against the grain and separate yourself out.
You got to save money somewhere.
I like Elijah Mitchell this week for that reason. He had more rushing attempts than McCaffrey last week. He had more rushing yards than McCaffrey last week. And all it takes is for that red zone luck to revert to the mean. As if he just comes back to the middle, he's going to score. He's going to score more. He's going to have more points, more yards. So I like Mitchell in this game from that standpoint. I have him in my own DraftKings lineup for that reason, because I think he can be a fun contrarian play. And you got to take a big swing when you're in that situation.
Because you can't play all the number 1 guys.
No,
you got to figure out who you're going to plug in that's underneath the surface just a little bit, like a submarine. And and if you hit, it's like a submarine that launches the torpedo and blows up the ship.
Right.
And so I'm with you on Elijah Mitchell. I like that as a play.
If you've got the bases loaded in the 9th inning, bottom of the 9th, bases loaded, you're down by 3. You can send a pinch hitter up that's got a 286 average and is a slap hitter, and that's great. Or you can send somebody like Matt Stairs, who is going to swing out of his shoes and can launch the ball into McCovey Cove, kind of thing. So you got to take a big swing when it gets to this point in the year, I think. And if you want to,
and if you're taking a big swing with Elijah Mitchell, that's not the worst big swing we could talk about.
Not at all. That's the best of both worlds. That's a power hitter with average. So I like that play today. I don't mind Brandon Ayuk. I think that he's another one who's been quiet in the playoffs. So I think the public's going to be off of him a little bit, but he's got that ability.
Let's see how quiet. Yeah, he's been quiet. He has only 5 catches in the postseason. 5.
It's only going to cost you $4,400. That's below average. I mean, below average money for an above average player. Jump on it. Why wouldn't you? Right. But yeah, I think that this is going to be an under game.
And then we haven't mentioned. I guess we kind of did Kittle, and the most acrobatic catch maybe in the history of football against the Cowboys last week. And so, I'm surprised we're going. I'm not really surprised, but all these offensive weapons on both sides
Right.
are countered in every respect by the defense.
Because they're playing a couple of great defenses. Now, if you don't want to spend the kind of money that I'm spending and throw $12,000 at two tight ends, Kittle's a decent compromise. Yeah. I mean, 5,200 right now this week on DraftKings.
Right.
And I do have him ranked as my number 2 tight end.
5 for 5 for 95 yards.
Lighting the world on fire with that call. But I mean, if you feel more comfortable playing someone else at in the flex other than a tight end, you don't want to spend that kind of money on Kelsey. You can do worse than Kittle there. Now, it's not a great matchup. I mean, because like we said,
there's not a great matchup no matter where we look on any of it.
Right? Yeah, you're not going to get a good matchup in this game outside of Eagles receivers versus the 49ers, because the 49ers do give up a ton of fantasy points to opposing receivers. But I don't necessarily know if that translates into real life scoring in terms of getting AJ Brown or Devontae Smith into the end zone.
They bend a little bit, but they don't break.
So I'm sticking with my original picks of 49ers versus Chiefs. What do you say today?
I'm going with, and it's hard to believe that I'm going with both of the road teams in these conference championship games. And I think that Mahomes, being, even if he's just a little bit below par, that I think I was going to take the Bengals even if Mahomes was at 100%. But since he's not, then I'm going with the Bengals. It's kind of amazing how they went from Baltimore and looking like a team that just
squeaked it in. Yep.
Right. What kind of team are you?
Mm-hmm.
And then they go into Buffalo and just blow the doors off the place. And so I think that's the kind of team that's going to come into Kansas City today. It's going to be a slugfest. And so but Mahomes and Kelsey both being a little questionable throws a little shade on Kansas City to me. I think the Bengals win this game and the 49ers win, and then we have Bengals and 49ers, just like, what was it, back before almost any of us were alive when they played in the Super Bowl.
That'd be the third time. That would be the third time.
That's right. That's
finally, we might finally get to see redemption for
Joe
Cincinnati.
Montana threw the touchdown with, what was it?
Don't remind me of that.
56 seconds to play, whatever it was.
I literally went to my room and cried after that. I remember watching that game distinctly. That was the game that Tim Krumrie had that horrible break of his leg there earlier in the game. Tim Krumrie, University of Wisconsin product. But I remember watching that game on the floor in my parents' bedroom. That was where we all watch TV. And I remember after that game, I just thought, son of a I was so upset about it. I was a little kid. Yeah, I remember going up to my room and crying about that. I was so mad at that game. I wanted the Bengals to win that so bad. There was Ickey Woods season and all. What a time! What a fun time
that was going on,
and that was right in the middle of the NFC's run of dominance, where they won whatever.
That's right, when they won
16 in a row or however many it was
crazy. Yeah,
but
and so that's where I'm. Bengals, 49ers in the Super Bowl 2 weeks from today.
I think that's where my heart is going, but like I said, my head, I called Chiefs Niners to begin with. I'm not going to waver on that. I'm going to stick to my convictions. All right. I think that's going to do it for us today.
That's right.
If you've listened to us, if you like what you heard, obviously hit like and subscribe down there.
That's right.
And give us a listen and give us some, share it with your friends, stalk us, do whatever you got to do, but get us some numbers. We appreciate that. If you like what we said today, you still got time to get over to DraftKings.com. They're not going to be live for another 3 hours.
Get over
or so.
to the Belly Up Fantasy, website and check out the articles that you mentioned earlier. And so, there's a ton of good information, not just what we've talked about, but it's written down. And so get over there, check that out. And if you want to, go ahead and rewind the show and watch
There
it
you
again.
go.
So-
Hey, yeah. Like I said, tell your friends, tell your family, stalk it, do what you got to do. But yeah, get over there. You've got time to, you've still got time to check out things on BellyUpFantasySports.com. Check out some of the, advice we've got over there. You've still got times to get to DraftKings and get a DFS lineup in, because they won't be live for about another 3 hours or so. First game, as it says there at the bottom of your screen, that first game is going to kick off at 3. Second game kicks off at 6:30. That's Eastern time, where time begins.
Right. That's right. Yeah. If you listen to our Belly Up colleagues, that's what they say. Time begins on the East Coast. We would digress with that, I think.
Yeah. We'll let that sit and simmer. Yeah. But thanks for being with us again today, Kevin. Thank you, everybody out there, for watching and for being with us. Like
that's right. We appreciate everyone that takes time out to watch us, and
exactly.
Much love to you guys.
All right. Yeah. Give us the support. We appreciate that ongoing. Good luck to whoever you guys are cheering for today. We will see you next week. Slanjava.